I'm here in Belgrade, outside the Parliament building. I've been a guest of the Djokovic family last night and today. And of course, overnight, the judges said the rules under which he got into Australia were the right ones. He was released from detention. Hooray, everybody thought. But the sting in the tail is that the Australian immigration minister has the right to overrule the court. So arbitrary power could be used over the rule of law under the threat of him being rearrested. Now, it's evening time in Australia. I now don't think that's going to happen, but they've been bullying him, saying to him, look, leave of your own free will, because if we do rearrest you, you'll be banned for 3 years. Really nasty tactics. And you know, these words should come back to haunt Scott Morrison. He said rules are rules. Yeah, and the judge said, Prime Minister, that the rules under which Novak got into Australia were the right ones. This is the first really big victory against the big state, which has grown so much over the course of the last 2 years since this pandemic began. I believe firmly in freedom of choice, and hey, he hasn't had the vaccine. That's up to a young, fit athlete like Djokovic. But of course, provided you've been tested, what's the problem? So that this, I think, is a really big victory. Overnight, a big victory for freedom of choice, a big victory for common sense. I'm just crossing the fingers and hoping that it stays that way.
Issue of Mr. Djokovic. Rules are rules. And there are no special cases. Rules are rules. It's what I said to you yesterday. That's the policy of the government and has been our government's strong border protection policies, and particularly in relation to the pandemic. And I want to thank the Australian Border Force officers for doing their job, implementing the government's policy. And the ABF has done their job. Entry with a visa requires double vaccination or a medical exemption. I'm advised that such an exemption was not in place, and as a result, he is subject to the same rule as anyone else. People are put on planes and turned back all the time. Anybody who's watched the Border Patrol shows will understand that. This is not an irregular thing to happen if someone is put on a plane and told to return to their country, even if they may have come with a valid visa. A visa is one issue, but you have to have a double vaccination, because that's the country's rule for entry into the country, and that is assessed at the border. If you're not double vaccinated and you're not an Australian resident or citizen, well, you can't come. And many countries have those rules around the world, and we have them, and they've been very important for securing Australia during the course of this pandemic. And so it is on them to have the proof to show why they wouldn't have to be vaccinated. Now, he was unable to furnish that proof to the Border Force officers at the airport last night, and they're the rules, and it happens on many occasions.
Orthodoxia! Elas! Serbia! Orthodoxia!
So we are calling on our Prime Minister to do two things today. One, to release Novak Djokovic into Australian society. And number two, to end all the mandates, end the segregation, end the discrimination. No one should be thrown out of their job because they are vaccine free.
It's Monday, the 10th of January 2022. And if I'm smiling, it's because Team Freedom had a great win today. A great win with the court case involving Novak Djokovic, the decision of the judge, 6-love, 6-love, 6-love to Mr. Djokovic. Just look at the scathing criticisms that the judge said today. I'll just read you some of those. The court heard when prompted to provide proof that Mr. Djokovic had uploaded the medical exemption document from the Chief Medical Officer at Tennis Australia. And this is the words of the judge. Here, a professor and an eminently qualified physician have produced and provided to the applicant, that's Djokovic, a medical exemption. The judge went on further. He said, further to that medical exemption was on the basis on which it was given, was separately given by a further independent expert specialist panel established by the Victorian state government. And that document was in the hands of the delegate, which of course is the federal government. And the judge also said, in a direct quote, "The point I am agitated about is what more could have this man done?" We said, game, set and match to Djokovic. Now this shows that the federal government has been playing politics with COVID. Tonight, following that judge's decision, under the Westminster system, the minister involved in this should resign immediately. Her resignation should be on the Prime Minister's desk before midnight tonight. And the Prime Minister of this country should get up and apologise to the entire world. He should apologise to the nation for embarrassing Australia in front of the world through playing politics with COVID. I called this out many days ago, that this was an appalling and disgusting decision by our Prime Minister that had brought shame upon our nation. And that's exactly what has played out in the courts today. Now, all this could have been avoided if the government had passed my no domestic vaccine passport bill. The initial villain in this is the Victorian government, because there is simply no justification whatsoever to discriminate between vaccine-free people and those that have injected this substance into their body. We should not discriminate against them. In fact, if anything, the data shows that vaccine-free people are at less risk of catching the current variant of COVID than those that have had 2 injections of this stuff into their bodies. So it's not only a win for Djokovic, but following this win, there is more that needs to be done. All the vaccine mandates in this country must be stopped and thrown in the bin and suspended immediately. No one in Australia should fear losing their job or be thrown out of their job because of their COVID vaccination status. If you are vaccine free, you should be free to work in your occupation of choice. We've also got to tear down these barriers that are across Australia at the moment. There should be no excuse that a person cannot travel anywhere in Australia because of their vaccination status. People that are vaccine free do not need to be segregated or discriminated against, and they should be free to travel across all points of Australia. So let's hope tonight the Prime Minister offers an apology to the world and to the nation for the embarrassment that his government has caused. And let's hope that under also the Westminster system, ultimately the minister should fall on her sword and resign tonight.